It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. You're tuned in to the Wrestling Inc. podcast for all things that were AEW Dynamite. Hello and good evening to everybody watching us live. We appreciate you. I am Justin LaBar here to bring you our post AEW Dynamite podcast coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. As always on Wednesday night, north of the border in the country that is home to AEW this week. He is from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He is a WWE referee, legend, soon to be Hall of Famer, I predict. He is the one, the only. He made counting three cool. He is Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, how are you tonight?
Again, as usual, how do you follow that introduction? It's going to be tough, but I'm much better after hearing all your lovely accolades. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Just wait until Tony Chimmel gives you the induction speech on the Hall of Fame stage.
Oh, I can't wait for that. It'll be like an old road trip, that's for sure.
And I bet you come out to the podium to Cool in the Gang, huh?
I don't know. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Maybe. Well, back in the day, we were nicknamed Waldorf and Stadler for a little while. So who knows? Maybe we come out to the Muppets.
Little Muppet babies. All right. Come out, smoking the cigarette as vintage Jimmy K did.
Oh, it's been a long time, brother. So
Jimmy here with me and joining us again was with us Monday night. Back with us has been a great special guest here on Wrestling Inc. for the podcast. Hope we can get it more to where it's not just special and he's just like a regular guest coming to us from Richmond, Virginia. He is the podcast man, Matt Koon. Matt, how are you this evening? Great to talk to you twice this week.
It's been great, and I've never covered a AEW show for Dynamite, so I'm interested to do that. Great to see you guys. Always fun to be on Wrestling Inc. Everybody watching on YouTube, thanks for watching, and I'm glad to be here. Let's have some fun.
Wow, inaugural AEW show here on Wrestling Inc. for Matt Koon. So, Matt, I'm going to warn you of a few things. It gets a little crazy. There's a roll-up a time or two. There's some things to interpret, but I'm sure you'll be able to help me. You might be able to even educate Jimmy and I, because sometimes we find ourselves stumped on certain things. Tonight, there was some good, there was some bad, there were some head scratchers. That's an AEW Dynamite for you. That's all you need. It's full of all those things. Before we get to that, though, there are actually two news stories I want to bring up, both AEW related. First, we'll talk about personnel and health. This one coming from Fightful Select is the original source here. They are reporting that Kyle O'Reilly, who has been out of the ring, inactive for quite a while due to neck, it's been 18 months, in fact, due to a neck injury, that he has been backstage at recent AEW tapings, and there has been talk of O'Reilly returning to TV. No exact timetable, but Matt, it would seem that Kyle O'Reilly, if he's back and there's talk of TV return, he's back hanging out, that he's another one who successfully can say that he had a neck scare, neck injury, had it medically dealt with, and could be on the other side of it with more of his career still to come. So first off, just good news for him. Good for him. Part of that very unique and select group that can overcome a neck injury. But with Kyle O'Reilly, you talk about Roderick Strong, you might think about Adam Cole, you think about people he's synonymous with. What do you make of this news and the timing of this news of his potential return to TV?
Well, first of all, as a level 4 fusion survivor who has not gotten over the surgery 100%, I'm so happy for Kyle O'Reilly. A few months ago, he put out an Instagram post that seemed so sad and resigned, and it was, everybody who read it just said, wow, I don't know if he's coming back. So what great news. Is he going to be part of the Devil crew? If they're in the Devil crew, maybe, but definitely going to be involved with Adam Cole. Glad to see him back. It's always good to see, especially a few months ago, he did not think he was coming back anytime soon. So that's really great to see. He's a talent that, like many others in AEW, they could make more of.
So as you being our guest in the first AEW podcast, I wanted to toss to you first. It was just kind of me just trying to be polite. I had no idea. Level 4, what does that mean? Give me some education. What does that mean, level 4 neck surgery? 4
of my vertebrae were reassembled, but for me, it was, how life's funny, right? So one day, I found out I had a spinal tumor right in the middle of my vertebrae, and it was affecting my hands, and it still does, where I play guitar. And so they not only had to have the fusion surgery, but they had to break the neck in the surgery too. So, and I'm a very large person, not just overweight, but very tall. So it was a difficult surgery. It took 10 hours during COVID. And now still in pain every day somewhat, but it's been a journey. And so anytime I see someone who's had fusion surgery or neck repair, my heart goes out to him because it is no joke.
Wow. I did not, that you educated me a little bit there. And props to you for just dealing with that.
In life, you have no choice. Just like Kyle O'Reilly, he could be how he was talking in that last post and say, okay, I can't do it. But that guy obviously doesn't have any quit in him. And that's an example for all of us.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. Jimmy, attached with what Matt just said, giving it some more color to what the injury is here. Your thoughts on Kyle O'Reilly? And again, he's known for his company with his his Undisputed Era brethren, who are certainly the talk of a particular AEW storyline right now.
Wow, that's amazing. First of all, Matt, we're thinking of you, best always to you, and didn't realize you were going through such an ordeal yourself, and glad you're getting better.
For sure. Thank you so much, buddy.
Yes. And getting back to Kyle O'Reilly, yes, obviously it's great news to hear that it looks like he's on his way back, especially after such a huge surgery. But at the same time, man, all you hope for is that he is okay and everything is okay with him. You know what I mean? You think of his health first and foremost, and hopefully he doesn't rush himself back in, so to speak.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's I think obviously that's probably the number one thing is you have to look to AEW Medical and make sure
exactly
that,
And I can't, and not to cut you off, Justin. That's one thing I can't speak for their medical because I'm not familiar with it. But I know in WWE's case they're very, very big on the medical aspect and getting cleared. So to get cleared like Edge did when he returned at that Royal Rumble, he had to go through a lot of testing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and obviously all of us who are very in the weeds wrestling fans, again, we know Kyle O'Reilly and associate him, as we said with Roderick Strong, with Adam Cole, but it's risk versus reward. Make sure he's ready to go before you deem it's the right risk to take, and that he's worthwhile if he was to be revealed to be any part of these masked men or something like that down the road. So keep an eye on it. But nonetheless, congrats to you, Kyle O'Reilly, for getting on the other side of this next treatment, neck treatment. Excuse me. Other AEW story that I find interesting, especially if we look at the details here. Jack Perry, formerly known as Jungle Boy in AEW, but now some news is that Perry has filed to trademark the name Jungle Boy. He used it in his independent wrestling career. He carried it over into his first several years in AEW. The gimmick attorney, Michael Dawkins, handled the trademark on behalf of Boy Myth Legend, Inc., which is Jack Perry's company. So this is interesting. For those who just are forgetting some recent history, we have not seen Jack Perry since the altercation that happened in London backstage with CM Punk. It was the last altercation that ultimately would result in CM Punk's departure from the company. We believe that Jack Perry was at least suspended. I don't know if the suspension's up now, but he was at least suspended. We've not seen him on TV since. So there was some disciplinary action. Jimmy, I find this interesting. I know AEW does things a little bit different. I know that they tend to get, they let their talent have a little bit more autonomy. Some of their talent gets to do independent stuff. Some of their talent gets to still hustle their own merch. They with contracts, they don't just cut contracts short when they want. They at least let contracts run to their natural expiration date. So they give a little bit more respect, if you will, to talent. So I don't know, when I hear that Jack Perry and his company filed for this trademark, I don't know whether that is just business as usual, that AEW and Tony Khan's not going to ever try to own somebody's identity and their persona, or is this a sign of the opposite, whereas Jack Perry's trademarking something because he wants to go continue to use and build upon a brand that he started, because his days in AEW are numbered and or expired. What do you make of this and all your years around WWE and trademarks?
Yeah, it's interesting because you gave two scenarios, potential scenarios there of what it could be, and I think it's somewhere in the middle, in my opinion. It's kind of like they're not using the Jungle Boy name per se now. He is Jack Perry, but if he if AEW didn't trademark that name, he's smart to trademark it himself because he has used it in the past. It becomes his, and anytime that AEW has any kind of use of his past performances, for example, for do people even watch DVDs anymore, or whatever, online streaming, that sort of thing, they have to pay him for the rights to use the terminology Jungle Boy. So maybe it is just a business move on his behalf, and if it is, smart for him to do it. If AEW isn't the type of company that goes out and trademarks these names. You look at like certain situations. We mentioned the former superstar Edge, Adam Copeland, using the rated R superstar moniker right now, which is something that WWE didn't trademark, but it makes him people say, yes, I know that guy. Because, there might be some people out there say, I don't know who Adam Copeland is, but I do know who Edge is. I'm not diehard wrestling fans, obviously, but you see where I'm going with this. I think it's a smart move on his behalf to keep the name under his umbrella for monetary purposes.
Yeah, and that one's wild to me too. The rated R superstar. I mean, Matt. I'm not a lawyer. I stayed at a Holiday Inn last week, but I play one. But help me out, because Matt, you were very versed in the world of music, where trademark and copyright and ownership and royalty. It's like bedrock to the business and to creators surviving. What do you know? What do you interpret when you hear that Jack Perry and his company just now have trademarked Jungle Boy, just now coming off of months of absence via disciplinary action?
Well, yes, for sure in the music world, but everything I really know about copyright and trademark, I learned from a good friend of mine that I've spent a lot of time with talking about it. His name is Mike Dawkins, the gimmick attorney that you were talking about earlier. Mike's a very smart guy. Mike is the guy to go to if you want to trademark. But the other piece of insight I think I can offer is Dax Harwood trademarked CMFTR a couple months ago, and it made some news. And I know for a fact, in talking to Dax, that was 100% about protecting IP, intellectual property. And so I think this is more about what Jimmy was saying, protecting that intellectual property, and also, to that end, if he chooses to bring the character back one day, if he goes to WWE, he's still young, maybe he wants to use a Jungle Boy name. So to me, it's not a timely thing. It seems like something, I know Dawkins has done stuff with friends close to him, so I'm sure maybe just Jungle Boy just had time to do it. And I think it's just protecting the intellectual property.
Very interesting, very interesting. Good insight by both of you. So we'll keep an eye just in general on Jack Perry. If and when do we see him resurface on AEW television? All right, let's move into Dynamite tonight, coming to you from Montreal, Canada, the Bell Center, a building that's got so much wrestling history. Big show here tonight. This is the second of two nights for them in Montreal. They did some Collision tapings. Was it Collision and Rampage tapings last night? Or definitely at least Collision last night.
Both. Yes, okay. I believe.
But 2 nights in Montreal.
Oh no, so sorry. Not to cut you off. I think it was ROH and Collision tapings, and I think they're doing Rampage tonight.
Rampage. That sounds right. I think that sounds right. Yeah. So 2 nights in a row
They don't even have Collision in Canada.
Which is, well, it's funny you say that. It's kind of wild because there was some chatter around social media yesterday about how low the attendance numbers were for tickets sold for the Collision taping yesterday, and as Jimmy can attest to, Saturday night it's hockey in Canada.
Right, of course, and also the station that airs AEW Dynamite up here in Canada does not air Rampage on their television live or Collision either. It's on their streaming service. So if you do want to watch it, you have to go to their streaming site.
Yeah, so an interesting choice to want to tape a Collision in a country where the distribution of it is not is that. So, but nonetheless, there's many things to talk about and discuss on that front. But we'll move it on. So we kick off with one of the first of many Continental Classic matches tonight in this tournament: Jon Moxley versus Rush. Can definitely say Rush getting some heat with the crowd. There was an interesting little moment where he does a little pose in the middle of the ring, and Mox is a little flip-a-doo and flips him off. This was a fun match. It was exactly what you think a Moxley match is going to be. They fight into the crowd a little bit. Ultimately, though, we're going to see Moxley get the win with a rear naked choke. I'm interested in both of you for two different reasons of your opinion of this. I'm going to go to you, Jimmy, first. Mox wins. I'm not surprised by Mox winning. He does the rear naked choke. And then they do this thing where right after he lets go of the hold, Roosh is up and might as well be doing jumping jacks and things. And commentary is explaining to us that maybe the bell, maybe the music, something awoke Roosh, and now he's almost arguing the decision as if like, no, he didn't pass out. I think the decision on paper for Mox to win via submission is perfectly fine and suitable, but the whole were they trying to protect Roosh? What was the whole finish here to you?
I wish I could tell you it made absolutely zero sense to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the match. I thought they had a good fight, and the one thing that gets me is after a match like that, they get a finish like this. I understand what they were going for. The referee calling the match off, which is something else that bothers me because, you know, he does call, the referee has been calling for end to matches during Wardlow matches lately on referee stoppage. That's what this felt like, a referee stoppage. Yes, he had the rear naked choke on, his arms fell. Check the one arm at least and let it fall before you call for the bell. So it doesn't seem like, again, referee stoppage, so to speak, which is what somebody else's gimmick is. And that being said, like you said, Justin, it felt like he pretty much no-sold it afterwards. He got up before the guy who applied the submission got up, and he was complaining that, hey, what are you doing? At least sell a little bit, look a little confused. It doesn't have to take long, but look like you were out and you're just coming to and realizing what's going on and going, hey, what the heck's going on here? It didn't work for me.
Okay, so I wanted Jimmy's interpretation, just as from a referee who's been involved in thousands of finishes. Matt, you've been a wrestling fan for decades. From all that I've been able to pull with talking to you, you're a very smart wrestling fan. You're kind of a straight shooter, no bullshit. What was your reaction to this? Am I nitpicking? Are we nitpicking here, or did it come off as a no-sell? What did you see with this?
My opinion was that Roosh did not want to lose, and he in real life, and he lost, and he just got up and said, "Well, that's the deal. If I'm going to lose, I'm just going to take the pin, then get back up." Roosh has had, some precedent in his life and in his career that sometimes what happens between the four, in the squared circle there, he gets to decide what happens. So, like with Moxley and other people, it's like they're fighting for their life in there, and he definitely has star power. He definitely has a lot of potential, but this seems a lot like a lot of things I've heard about him, about, this particular thing where he takes the choke out, then he gets up because he's still Superman. I think Roosh was taking care of Roosh. Opinion.
So in your opinion, you think commentary on the fly was having to do some cover?
Absolutely. They do it a lot. They have to cover up stuff, and we've seen it a few times in AEW. But to me, it's like, oh, we better explain that because that's the crew they have. They're good at that.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly put their best effort towards it here and in other situations I can think of. If I'm John Moxley, if that's how it went down, of course, the three of us are just speculating. We're not there. We're just speculating based upon what we saw. But if that's how it actually went down, if that's the truth, if I'm John Moxley, I'm hunting his ass down. Mm-hmm. Who the F are you? Who are you?
It's also possible that was the negotiation that was made for the loss, like backstage, okay, I'll lose, but I'm not going to be hurt. And they're like, fine, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's what it seems that it's at the very least that, to me, that seems very possible.
Definitely very possible.
Let's call some wrestlers court on that. I don't know. It just seems. Three points to Moxley.
Yeah, there you go.
3 points to Moxley.
It does take you out as a fan a little bit, though. It does take you out.
That's the point I was exactly, Matt. That's the point I was trying to make. After a hard fought match like that I was into and watching, that ending took me out of it.
Yeah, it was weird. Moxley gets the win, so he right now is ascended in his I forget which color his. I think he's gold. On his side of the bracket. He's up there with 9 points. He's gonna have somebody moving up there with him here in a little bit that we'll talk about. All right, so speaking of John Moxley, we go to Mrs. Moxley. We go to Renee Paquette. Renee is on the ramp with Roderick Strong and the Kingdom, and it's a miracle. Roddy can walk. He stands up. He sheds the wheelchair. No longer will the wheelchair hold him back anymore. That was a statement he wanted to make. And Matt, again, I'm gonna draw to you with You're a guy. You appreciate equipment. You appreciate audio. He makes his whole promo great. He's entertaining. He screams everybody's names, and then he spikes the microphone like it's a football and a touchdown, and the mic goes flying into the crowd. And if I'm reading things about how this disciplinary committee is fining talent for social media posts and policy. If that's the truth, when are we going to start fining on abuse of equipment? It's coming out of your paycheck, pal. What is that about?
Man, it's almost as if the company was owned by a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he's probably like, I want to exert this control over the tweets, but what's a microphone? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's a microphone to me, really? So I can see, the parallel there for sure. Roddy Strong.
That's funny. That's one of the funniest quotes. It's almost like the company was owned by a billionaire.
Yeah. As far as Roddy Strong segments, I tweeted this. I said, the Roddy Strong segments are for people who like comedy and wrestling, but hate laughing. It's not funny. Comedy should be funny. But hopefully what we saw was Roddy Strong getting rid of this whole thing. Maybe throwing the wheelchair off is their way of saying, okay, this is very unpopular. Let's get rid of this idea and maybe go forth as more of a straighter acting act.
All right, Jimmy. One thing to note here is that if Roderick Strong is now able to be vertical again, and now makes him applicable even more so to be part of this masked devil crew. I don't know what you make of that prediction or speculation, but what was your take of this segment overall of Roderick Strong? He's no longer going to be held back by that wheelchair.
Well, I prefer it that way. And we're finally, I think it was long enough in the wheelchair. It was overdone. Let's put it that way. And yes, I guess he was trying to sell whatever the heck he was trying to sell. Let's put it that way. But finally getting him out of the chair was a good deal. And because it does add more speculation. And at least now it's got people thinking who is behind that devil's mask. It adds another name to the list. So it's not as, I know for sure it's so-and-so, or I know for sure it's so-and-so. You can make a case for certain individuals. Like if for even Adam Cole, if his injury wasn't as legit as it is, you could have made a case for him as well. That's the best thing about it. It adds more questions to, could it possibly be him, and makes people, I think people get more invested in him if they think along those lines. Because right now, like Matt was alluding to, people were seeing him in this situation with the wheelchair and the neck brace and everything, and they're going, yeah, here we go again.
Yeah. There's a lot to start to talk about with the devil as it's, I hope we're getting down the final stretch. We'll get to that here soon. So hold your questions and thoughts to that. Renee on the spot. She's backstage now with Hangman Adam Page, who he looks like he's like arriving to the building. And she stops and talks to him. He concedes that he did in fact lose to Swerve Strickland in a Texas death match, but that it's not over. And he's talking about how he took something from Swerve and that he's not going to ever let Swerve get something. It almost feels like he's saying he's never going to let Swerve become champion, but they don't actually say. They kind of keep a certain level of vagueness. But we do know Hangman is not settled with Swerve. We know that, and this is all happening right outside of MJF's locker room. MJF then appears, and then these two, MJF and Hangman, proceed to trade, bars at each other and compare resumes and talk about their history they have with each other. And then MJF actually accuses Hangman of maybe he's the devil. To which Hangman fires back, and then we get ready. We're gonna have a brawl happen, and Samoa Joe steps in and stops that fight from happening. Jimmy, Hangman keeping stuff alive with Swerve for whether it's now or later down the road, but then the interaction with him and MJF. What stood out in this entire interaction as noteworthy?
Yeah, the thing that stood out the most for me is this is the most heelish we've heard MJF in the last, I don't know how many weeks, because he's been coming off as more of a babyface in recent time as a champion. But tonight he sounded like the 100%, Hangman was the babyface, and MJF came off sounding like the 100% heel in this thing, which I found very interesting, especially because the crowd has been getting behind MJF the way they have. And I like the idea of Joe coming in and saying, look, it's, he's my responsibility right now. I have to look after him until I get my shot at him. So until then, nobody else gets to put their hands on him, or so to speak, kind of thing. But that was the only thing I found interesting about that whole segment, was that MJF came off as old school heel MJF.
Matt, this was the first we've seen Hangman since his loss in the Texas Death Match. Did this interaction segment do anything to help Hangman?
It's this poor guy, like you think about the Swerve feud, the guy broke in his house, cut a promo on his kid, and then beat him in a death match. Like, then he gets out here and he gets upstaged by Swerve again. Then he gets beaten a promo battle by MJF and gets punked out by by Samoa Joe. Like, he's portrayed as weak. They haven't known what to do with Adam Page from the very beginning. He's portrayed as weak. And Swerve is not a good feud for him. We saw that, if Hangman took anything from Swerve, it's the ability to be on the same level, because Swerve is now on a higher level than Hangman. And they need to do different stuff with Hangman. They don't know how to make him a compelling babyface character.
That's interesting. No, it's just it made me think to ask Matt if he thinks that he's getting Wardlow right now, because again, missed opportunity with Wardlow, where they're trying to get that back. Is this happening now with Hangman Page?
No, I think that happened a while ago with Hangman Page. Now he's getting upended in feuds. I think with Wardlow, he just kind of disappeared, right? He dropped off the face of the earth. But him against Swerve, and then Swerve being the bad guy supposedly, and Hangman being the good guy supposedly, and Swerve's getting more cheers than Hangman. And Swerve is obviously on the up and up. So you need to put Hangman against somebody that he can look good against, and Swerve's not that guy.
Before we move on in the show, I feel like this is a relevant topic and point to ask this to both of you. AEW started in 2019. You had Tony Khan as the head of the Snake, and then you had the EVP Foundation of the Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody Rhodes. Obviously, Cody departed. He's doing big things in New York. Kenny Omega, he's around right now. He actually has a match on the Collision taping against Ethan Page, but certainly he's not like the focal point of the show. He certainly is maybe at the lowest priority point in terms of where he's at in the booking than he's ever been in AEW. And then the Bucks are off TV for a certain time, supposedly being repackaged to have a heel turn, whatever that means. Hangman Page was never officially an EVP, but he was kind of a de facto. He was an elite guy, right? He's part of that entourage, that group. I don't know even what to make of it. It's just an observation. It feels like the elite that put the E into this entire company have, at least on screen, have never been less of a factor, and I don't know what that means. Matt, does that mean anything to you, or is it just booking coincidence?
No, I think it's just a natural gravity of things. I think the Bucks have struggled to continue that excitement they had when AEW started. They started decreasing their starship, almost immediately after the show started, bit by bit, and have never really gotten a hold as far as, being ratings draws or being someone that helps grow the audience. Kenny Omega is different. I think Kenny Omega is there when they need him to make a rating. He still gets ratings. He's there when they need him to make a big feud. If you do All In, in Wembley, he's probably in the main event. So it's kind of like, taking the main eventer, just kind of, setting him aside a little bit. As far as Hangman Page goes, he was very involved in the Elite. I was backstage at StarCast 1, and I saw them all together a lot. He definitely was as big a part of the crew as anybody, and I think he's someone that Tony Khan believes is still the future of the company. But absolutely, there's several changing tides in AEW right now, and they're all seem to be colliding in different directions. And I think one of them is just finding ways to have different talent than the Elite be on top.
Yeah, Jimmy, what do you make of that? That's an interesting way that Matt puts it, that there's several changing tides and they're all kind of creating like a hurricane collision here.
Right. I think they're finally starting to realize, hopefully at least, that as much, and I've been accused of being anti-AEW. I'm not anti-AEW. I want them to succeed, but I think they're starting to realize that we have to start catering to a broader audience. As I've said how many times, they cater to that hardcore, diehard audience, but they have to expand that Your television show needs to be more like a buffet where everybody gets you got something out there for everybody, and more people want to have a bite of something. And I think maybe that these guys as EVPs, you talk about disciplinary committees and then policing themselves, so to speak. It's almost like people in the EVP position should not be on-air talents.
Well, that, and also in a carny cut-through business like pro wrestling, if you the owner and booker of a company need to have a disciplinary committee, which includes an active member of your roster, might be the most upstanding moral compass that you could find, but still is an active member of your roster. So there's a conflict of interest and a conflict of just observation optics. Like, if you should be the one that handles the disciplinary. You should be the bad guy. You're the one that's supposed to be the bad guy. Like, you don't, like, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting dynamics going on as we're finding out about disciplinary committees, and we're hearing about stuff from the Punk situation, and now with social media they're dealing more with. Right. But you're right, Jimmy. I mean, you want to draw more new fans, and as we go into the next match, which is another Continental Classic tournament match, to the point of we're seeing the numbers skew downwards for AEW, and numbers meaning live attendance and that folk. I think a round robin tournament is the exact opposite thing that you do, because it's like you're taking 12 guys round robin. So you're taking 12 guys who now you have to handcuff a certain number of minutes of TV to feature all these 12 same guys. And it's a tournament, and the only people that are interested in tournaments are people that are invested in that watch regularly. So it's not something that's going to draw somebody new. So that's another thing that kind of scratched my head with this tournament. But nonetheless, we have it here as we're on the back side of it is a Continental Classic match between Mark Briscoe and Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland, obviously, his stock way up in AEW right now. Some solid chops in this match. Pretty interesting spot on the outside, a Swerve suplex that he delivers from standing on top of the barricade. That got quite the moment and quite the pop. Ultimately, though, Swerve's going to win with the Swerve stomp. So he has 9 points. So he is equal in his bracket to Jon Moxley. They're going to fight next Wednesday on Dynamite. And basically the winner of that match is going to be the winner of their side of the bracket. So, Matt, your thoughts on Swerve winning this match? And also, it's a round robin. So, Mark Briscoe, even if mathematically not favored or even possible, he still has to have matches, and he could be a spoiler. Now, we see that in real sports. An NFL team might be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but they can still play spoiler and affect a team that could go to the playoffs. But I don't know. Your thoughts on the tournament and on Swerve beating Mark Briscoe and where we're at this point in the tournament.
I like the Continental Tournament for AEW for a few reasons. Okay. Number one, they need the differentiation. It's something that makes them unique, right? It's not something that, it's not something WWE would do. And second of all, let's be honest, there are a lot of random matchups in AEW. So in my mind, this would compartmentalize the random matchup aspect to one part of the show. You could have sports entertainment, another part of the show. But for the fans, the diehards, the AEW fans, you give them these matches. But I think what we saw today was just too many matches. It was too much for me because I believe wrestling fans should care who wins or loses. However, and so the tournament's not for me. But at the same time, it does showcase what makes AEW different and in some aspects better with these great wrestlers doing these great things. But like I said, if it's compartmentalized in a place, there's a perfect spot to keep the fans happy and to keep the rest of the show wide open and to put your random matchups in one spot, because this kind of fills that slot.
Jimmy, I think it's a fair point by Matt. We can all agree there are a lot of random Tony Khan likes to just throw out here's a match, here's a really exciting matchup. There might be no heat or juice or story behind it, but here's supposed to be a great wrestling match. Under the guise of this tournament, it at least kind of gives explanation to having these matches. It's all in the name of a tournament.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And just as Matt was making that point, I said, my goodness, is everybody reading my notes tonight? That's there, like you said, a lot of random pairings and matches. And yes, we know, so-and-so versus so-and-so should be a really great match, as far as in-ring entertainment goes. But as we know, it's a wrestling business so much more. And I know a lot of fans don't like this terminology, sports entertainment. There's more areas of entertainment they need to approach in AEW, in my opinion. But to Matt's point about it being like giving a reason for having these random matchups, that's the biggest thing that they've gotten from this tournament is you have so-and-so versus so, like today, you have Briscoe versus Swerve. What other reason other than this tournament would you put those two together?
And to be fair, you know, with the Mox Swerve matchup next week, it is creating some compelling, reasons to watch, because that's a match now I would like to see. I would have liked to see it before, but now there's a reason, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so Mox versus Swerve next week, both at 9 points. So again, the winner, I think essentially is probably going to go to the finals of this tournament against the other side of the bracket, which I think we'd all be stunned if it's not Bryan Danielson on the other side of the bracket. Shout out to my co-host on Busted Open on Sundays, Jonathan Hood, who he called it to me several weeks ago and he said this whole Continental Classic is just the Bryan Danielson Invitational because he never got to do the G1. So that's where it seems like we're at. So Swerve versus Mox next week. All right. Up next, we get the advertised match is Samoa Joe and MJF up against the Devil's Masked Men Henchmen. Samoa Joe makes his entrance first, solo. He gets in the ring, and before we can ever get an MJF entrance, we get the flickering of the lights, and of course, we've been told by commentary that we've been learning that the Devil and the Devil's Henchmen, they have the ability to, take over the show, and they've affected lights and sound and video and all this stuff. So lights start to flicker. Then we see, I think, 4 masked men surround the ring, surround Joe, kind of cornering. Then lights go back out. Those masked men are gone. Then we see the Devil briefly appear on the screen, and then it cuts to backstage. MJF has been attacked by what looks like a bottle, and he is laid out and can do nothing. And so Joe, of course, rushes backstage to get to his tag team partner. Jimmy from the breaking the kayfabe. We know MJF is injured. We know that he's nursing some injuries, so that makes sense to get him out of having to do any bumping at all. So that's there. From a storyline standpoint, it's another compelling chapter. Oh, the Devil and his or her henchman strikes again. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this? And they leaned in a lot tonight. Even Taz, when the commentary was reacting to the dramatics, even Taz, well, we didn't see the Devil attack. It could have been MJF himself. And then I think at one point Hangman accused, so they're leaning into the fact that MJF could be it. Which when they lean into it, it kind of makes you think, well, it's not going to be MJF then. What are your thoughts on this? Me personally, I thought the Devil was going to be revealed at Full Gear. That didn't happen. So now we're on the path to this World's End event in Long Island at the end of this month. What are your thoughts on this? And who's a suitable answer for who the Devil is? That's not going to be a disappointment.
That's a good question. See, and one thing you mentioned that I thought about tonight that I didn't like what they did was, like you said, Hangman mentioned it, that maybe MJF is trying to pull a fast one and swerve everybody, and he's actually the one behind the Devil's mask. So now, if that's the case, what we saw tonight was a ruse against Joe, so that Max didn't have to have that match tonight, and so on and so forth, and pull a fast one on him. And it just is. But as far as who could be a suitable reveal as the Masked Devil, it's got to be something that's going to make people go, oh, I didn't see that coming, as opposed to, I knew it was so-and-so. And trying to think of who that could be, I wish I had an answer for you, but, right now, the only one that it would make me go, wow, is Adam Cole, because we know, as far as I know, his injury is legit. So he's going to be out for a while. But if they've pulled a fast one on us and swerved us that well, where it does end up being him, then hats off to him. But other than that, I can't think of anybody else that is on the roster right now that would make me go, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Swerve, bro. All right, Matt, I got this might be the highlight of the podcast. I got 2 big rounds of questions. Well, we'll start on the first one. I'm going to go to you again, because I don't get to talk to you. And I like your perspective. You kind of come out of in nowhere, and you just kind of lay it on me. So I like this. This is fun. I like stirring the shit here. All right. First one. Out of all the different things I've heard, Adam Cole, maybe he's not injured as bad. Adam Cole, Wardlow, Roderick Strong, Britt Baker. Who else? Out of all the different names that have been tossed out there in fantasy booking, what or who could or Jack Perry, what or who could possibly be the devil that would make sense and not be a flop, in your opinion?
Well, two different things, right? Make sense and not be a flop. I believe the reason the devil wasn't revealed at Full Gear is because Adam Cole got injured. I think Adam Cole was due to be the devil. If you think about them having the tag titles, and if they followed that down, that makes sense to me. At the same time, in the ring, it appeared to me last week that was Wardlow, Bennett, Strong, and Taven in the outfits. Their body types certainly looked like it. It certainly wasn't FTR. However, if I was booking, I got it. Like I got it. I know who. If I was booking, it would be the Elite. The Elite want that title. It's their company. They started it. Why does Max have the damn title? It should be the Elite. It should be the Bucks, Hangman, and Kenny, and they want that title, and it was them the whole time. And screw the fans for giving up on them. Blah blah blah.
All right, that's a spicy little bit of soup there that I could get behind. All right, next one. Matt, I'm gonna start with you again, but Jimmy, get your bullets in the holster. Next one is with MJF here, and this is something that MJF, we know that we are building to his match against Samoa Joe at World's End, end of this month, in Long Island, MJF's hometown. They still have the Ring of Honor tag titles too, which is theirs. It's another thing. So this is a deal here, right? We got MJF building to this world title match. MJF is, again, as we know, not 100% healthy. Want to also point out too, we know MJF has been leaning into the whole free agent as of 2024. And then when you see every poster in January and February for any AEW event, MJF's not on. Everything with All In London that they're pushing hard right now, MJF's not even on. That could be a strategic little Tony Khan thing of, well, we're going to lean into not putting you on the promotional material, but you're also doing that at the risk because you're not, if you're trying to sell tickets right now, you're not selling tickets on the account of advertising him. Matt, what's going on with MJF? Is MJF signed? Has he been re-signed quietly to AEW? Or is this so batshit crazy that MJF is the number one guy on AEW and he might be a free agent as of January 1? Tell me.
Okay. Well, there is precedent with Cody, right? Cody
Yes.
was out of contract. Sean Sapp puts it puts it out, and the next thing you know, he's in WWE. It seems to me, hypothetically, if Max signed with AEW and is signed with AEW, and he seems to still be into this free agent of 2024 thing, that when he saw the posters or whatever, he would say, hey, make sure I'm not on those posters to keep my thing going. I can see that happening, I totally think he's signed. There's no way he's not signed. But again, the Cody thing, it's been known to happen. So if something that crazy happened, I wouldn't be surprised. But if I had money to bet, I'd bet MJF is AEW for a while.
See, and I kind of bet that way too, Matt. Jimmy, I kind of bet that way too. Like common sense would tell me you've re-signed this guy in his mid to late 20s, who's like you have to contain. You can't let him go. You can't have him show up at the Royal Rumble, But you talk about the Cody precedent. But and this is a little bit less stature, but it speaks to the Tony Khan nice guy. I'm going to do right by people, but wrestling ain't always about doing right by people. I think of Jade Cargill. Tony Khan wants to try to tell me that Jade Cargill's TBS title run was equal to the Goldberg's undefeated run, and I'm sorry, Tony, you're wrong. But had this big old thing with Jade Cargill. Jade had a run. She finally loses. Then Jade disappears on TV for a long time. She's out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. People could have forgot about her. But then Tony voluntarily brought her back onto TV. She lost the match, but brought her back on TV to lose an advertised match on Rampage. So now you bring her back into people's mind. Now they're tweeting about her again. And then less than 2 weeks later, she's in the headlines of mainstream sports that WWE's acquired her, and WWE has made her look like a superstar, and she hasn't had one damn match. And so it's like he wanted to do right by her, but I think it's a terrible business way in terms of if you knew that she's leaving. And
Right.
so Jimmy, with all that, we've been blabbing here for a few minutes, Matt and I.
No.
Jimmy, what's the deal? Did MJF resign?
Really quickly, let's make it unanimous. I believe he has, but as far as the Jade situation, yes, brought her back to have that match on Rampage and lose is not, in my opinion, doing right by her. I'm thinking in his mind, he's thinking, hey, I'm kind of making her look not as strong on the way out. I think that's his mindset. That was his mindset at the time, not hey, I'm going to be the nice guy and put her on TV one more time. Because as you know, the viewing audience for Rampage is nowhere near what it is for Dynamite. So how many people did actually see it? That being said, this whole MJF thing, he keeps bringing it up. And the one thing that people keep forgetting that at, what is he, 27 years old, 27, 28 years old, late 20s? Yeah. Even if he signs, let's say, a 5-year deal, when that 5-year deal comes up, guess what? WWE is not going anywhere. If he wants to go, he can still go there. And he's got all that time to really cement a legacy before he gets there. And then become an even bigger star when he does arrive there. And yes, we see what happened with Cody, but I think it's too soon to have another one of those. Someone transitions from AEW to WWE to go to that level. And he knows that. MJF seems like a really smart guy for his age. Let's put it that way. So I think it's more he signed with them, but he knows how to manipulate the audience, and that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah. Well, if he did go to WWE in the next few months, I mean, it is a crowded space up on the top there with Punk there and Cody there and Orton's back and LA Knight and all the other people that are emerging. It is a crowded space, so we'll see. But it might be as simple as Matt saying, MJF just a smart worker saying, "Hey, take my name off the posters until a later time." But I
could totally see him doing that. Like that.
No, I could too. Yeah.
If anybody did that, he would do it.
Absolutely. Right. No, I agree. And I
agree that he's probably the one who had to tell him, "Hey, guys."
Yes, that's what I'm getting. I think Tony would just had. I think the first mock of the posters, Tony probably had him on there, and Max was like, "No, stop this."
Right.
But we'll see, because look, if World's End comes, MJF could lose his title, and it might just be he loses it because, like, health wise, he needs to take a few weeks or months off, and they just say, "Let's take the title off you." But if he loses it at World's End, that's still going to spark some curiosity of what's going on. Which to AEW's benefit, as long as they have him signed, they can lean into that and play up to that. That's great. As long as they have him signed, as long as the ink is dried and they got him, they're good. Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep it moving. We got a AEW Women's World Title match here. Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm, out there. She gets the introduction from Turner Classic Movies host, and also I see him on the on CBS Sunday Morning. I love this guy, Ben Mankiewicz. Gives a nice introduction to timeless Toni Storm. She goes up against Sky Blue, and it's a good match. I'm a fan of both these ladies. I'm a big fan of Sky Blue. I want to see more of her. I know she loses in this, but I want to see more of her. Toni Storm, love this character work. I want to see more character work. I want to see more of this. At one point in the match, I think this is fun. She's got the upper hand. She's posing to the hard camera, and they cut back into the black and white. I thought it was a nice production touch. Tony's going to roll up Sky for the win. Sky almost had her. It was like Sky had the momentum, and the momentum was rolled and shifted. So again, it was kind of like to protect Sky Blue. Tony wins. Not surprised here. Tony retains. And then after the match, Riho comes out. Now, Riho, of course, is forever going to have the accolade of being the first ever AEW Women's World Champion. Matt, thoughts on Toni Storm? I don't think it's a surprise that she beats and retains to Sky Blue here, but if you want to give Sky Blue any thoughts, you can. But Toni retains, but then Riho. Matt, I think Toni Storm is one of the most interesting characters that AEW television is putting out right now. I think Riho is about the exact opposite of all of that. But maybe I'm being harsh.
Yeah, Rio's not the foil. Rio's not the foil that Toni Storm needs at this time to keep elevating her status. I'm not sure who is. maybe Chris Statlander, right? Maybe, just somebody who just can play off of that character. It's so interesting. AEW, I said earlier, there's waves crashing different directions. So on the one hand, we have the G1 tournament going on, and the other hand, we have a silent movie star. So we're going in the WWE direction one way, going in the New Japan direction in the other way. It's not exactly a comfortable fit or a cogent show, and I'm sure people tuning in, if you tune in for the first time and you saw like a 20-minute Roosh Moxley classic and then see Tony Storm come out, you're probably going, what in the hell, Tony Soprano fever dream is this television show I'm watching?
Yeah, Jimmy, talking about Tony Storm, but then talking about Riho. And I mean, again, maybe, and if you like Riho, if I'm on the minority here, that's fine. But I just look at this, and I look at this from a visual standpoint, because it is a visual business. And I go, Tony Storm is not big in stature, but she's big with this personality and this character. But then I look at Riho. Riho looks about the size of a middle schooler. She doesn't cut any live English promos. I could not, if my life depended on me, define what her character is. I could not define what gimmick she is, or what she is, what's her backstory. She looks like she has no physical threat to any. The choice that damn roster is so inflated. We have so many people on contract. That's who we're going to bring out to be the next opponent.
Yeah,
Tony Storm.
Like you said, people get invested in the characters and the personalities, and you talk. How many times do I have to say it? You talk people in front of their television sets, or you talk them into buying tickets to go see something live, or to buy a pay-per-view or a premium live event, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? And this. Again, you talk about taking someone out of a match. I thought the match with Tony Storm and Sky Blue was a fine match. Finally getting a women's title match on television and stuff like that, but then tried to cram too much afterwards. And all you had to do is have Tony Storm cut a promo at the end saying, "Oh well, what is next for the timeless Tony Storm?" in black and white, and then maybe the screen does something. You don't have to have all that physicality afterwards. It is, as I say every week, 20 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag. You didn't need it.
Yeah, I want to be positive to something here besides Tony. Like Sky Blue, again, has a look. I think she's pretty good in the ring. When I've heard a few promos, when she does speak, I kind of do get like she's kind of sassy. I kind of get into it. I'd be more for Sky Blue chasing down Tony Storm, or us trying to find a way to extend this. The Riho thing just, again, you're trying to sell tickets, and I don't think she's moving one ticket in North America. I don't.
Yeah, even if sorry, Matt. Even if they steal the gimmick that they're doing with Shinsuke right now, where she's cutting a promo on the screen and they do the subtitles or something like that, it's just there's something it hasn't drawn me in.
Even if they did that visually, she's not. She doesn't look. She doesn't look like she could be a threat. I know it's different, but I know Matt.
In wrestling, of course, we're used to
talk us off the ledge. Talk us off the ledge.
Who are not, who are not physically, as imposing, do well. But this to me is a booking philosophy that may not have served Tony Khan well over the years, which is make the match, then create a reason for them, as opposed to create the reason and then make the match as the result. So you throw these two together. I'm not that into it, but maybe something happens. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe she sees her backstage and throws a pie in her face. I don't know, something, as opposed to her just running to the ring and said, "I'm back. Give me the shot," or whatever. And like we said, not the greatest foil for where Tony Storm is right now.
Yeah, my 9-year-old daughter looks like more of a threat than Riho. I don't buy it. Don't buy it. All right, Continental Classic. Continuing. Jay White versus Jay Lethal. Here's one thing I do really like about the Continental Classic. A big positive to this. You have a match between Jay White and Jay Lethal. They both have an abundance of entourage that normally stroll with them. I love the fact that this tournament enforces nobody at ringside. Love that. Got the match between these two. I didn't have to have all the goo goo gaga of Satnam Singh, Jeff Jarrett, and everybody else who's with Jay Lethal, and then the rest of the Bullet Club Gold and the Ass Boys that would be with Jay White. So I really like that. That's actually one thing I haven't said that enough, and I wanted to say it now that I like about the Classic is that at least it gives me a stipulation of, because AEW overdoes it too much, I think, with the outside, that they're telling me no outside interference. We are going to get a finish without outside interference. So that I want to put it right there. I like. Jay White's going to get a win, though. It is going to be another variation of a roll-up. Let's counterweight here between the two. So 6 points for Jay White. Jay Lethal has 0 points. Jimmy, this is our last Continental Classic match of the night. Your thoughts?
No, I didn't have an issue with the match. I had an issue with the finish, as you could probably guess. If anybody who follows me online, that the roll-up has some variation of the roll-up has become the most devastating finisher in all of pro wrestling, and it's not just in AEW; it's happening a lot of places. Again, what was the move? I'm trying to think of what the name of that move was. It's the Brain Buster. People are kicking out of Brain Buster, stuff off the top ropes, the twisting, burning 450 hammer, Phoenix splashes, and. We had a roll up earlier. If we didn't have the
match before, the roll up.
Yeah, if we didn't have the roll up earlier, I wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it this time. But too much of the same thing is happening over and over again, repetition, and that's what's hurting a lot of these matches. Like in these tournament matches, all of them fought outside for extended periods of time, too. So
Wow. Shout out to Ethan Cruz in the chat. Brock Lesnar should have ended the streak with a roll up.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Could you imagine? Stone Cold's told the story of how he was sitting in the production truck drinking beer next to Kevin Dunn. He had no idea that Lesnar was going to win that year. If Lesnar would have schoolboyed Taker.
Oh, wow.
Matt, Jay White versus Jay Lethal. Any thoughts you want to give up on this one?
Yeah, it was too much Continental Classic. I like AEW. I want AEW to rule. I like what they stand for in a lot of ways. But with this Continental Classic, it's so much of the show is being taken up by these long matches. It's not really for me. I like a good match, but it's TV wrestling television, and we become accustomed to a certain thing where it's entertaining all the time. So. It was fine. As far as the thing you like is something I don't like really, is the fact that there's no interference allowed in the Continental Classic matches. But the rest of the time, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Just whatever. Just have clowns come out with hammers and whatever. But the Continental Classic, you can't do it. So normally there's no rules, but there really are, there's no rules. But this, if you don't follow, it's like they can't stop somebody from getting attacked with a beer bottle. But they can set the rules straight on outside interference in these matches. There's a certain hilarity to that.
Well, yeah, everybody wears the dog collar, and there's an invisible fence around the ring when there's a Continental Classic match going on. But you're not wrong, Matt. It's kind of I've joked with Jimmy in the past. It's to the point sometimes with AEW. It's like, I know we all it's well documented. Tony loves his original ECW. It's almost like. Just say that this match has AEW rules, like how there was ECW rules, which basically meant no DQ and no count out. Like, just say that.
Yeah, I assume it is if Mike Knox is in the ring. Like, if Mike Knox is in the ring, I assume everybody, not just in the ring, but in the building, you're on your own. Okay, you're on your own. Fight for your life. Because
he was off TV for a while. He just resurfaced in the last 2 weeks. He just resurfaced. His suspension must be up.
I think he was a victim of the disciplinary committee. Let's put it that
way. Yeah.
He probably didn't even notice the meeting was going on. You know what I'm saying? Like he was in the other room. He didn't even notice it. Didn't even see that the meeting was on. So,
you know what? And again, we're on a show with a referee, so I can't. AEW rules and everything get under whatever. They're certainly always under fire, and for justified reason. I actually think the AEW referee, who I think that people draw attention to, maybe because she's a female, and there's female referees in pro wrestling now, but still not as many, or it's not as the norm as for as many years. And I know that she sometimes can make weird faces. I actually think out of the referees, I think Aubrey Edwards is, to me overall, is probably the best of the AEW referees.
I like Paul Turner.
I was just gonna say I would lean towards
Paul would be my number 2. I mean that's based upon like again, and I'm a jabroni. That's me watching where they're at in the ring. It's me watching like Bryce. I'm sorry, I know Bryce gets all the main events. Bryce is scared as shit to hit the mat unless it's a finish. He is scared as shit to touch the mat unless it's a finish. And I'm like, could come on. This is not slow motion dramatic TV here.
And stop selling everything that's happening to the boys. When the boys get punched in the face, don't sell your own chin and stuff like that. And as far as Aubrey goes, I'm not saying she's a bad referee. It's just that sometimes I feel like she's in there posing as opposed to, positioning.
Yeah.
I don't know. How to explain.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way: Paul's the best from things I see, and obviously things you see, Jimmy, and also size wise. Aubrey's actually taller, and obviously I know you want your refs to be size wise. You want them to. You don't want them to be competitive to size to your talent. So Paul fits that too because he's also a smaller size.
That I know that's the old school way of thinking, especially in WWE. You don't want your referees to overshadow the talent, that's for sure. But it works in UFC. I mean, like Big John.
Yeah, but
I know it's different.
Yeah, but I'll argue. I respect you to death, Jim. I'll argue with you all night to this.
Yeah.
In UFC, where it's a shoot fight. Big John gives me credibility that Big John McCarthy, credibility of, if he's got to step in there, he can stop these two MFers because if he has to. In pro wrestling, it's like where everything is build heights, build weights. Everybody's supposed to be bigger than life. If Bryce's technique was better, he'd be perfect because he's so small. But as we said, he's just.
They need to make it feel like the referees in wrestling need to be respected by the talent for maybe they bring up the disciplinary committee on TV. The referees are part of, I don't know, something like that. I don't know.
Well, here was 2 guys, one in particular that definitely respected the referee and the rules at one point here. Let's go to our main event. Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage for the TNT Championship. This has been advertised now here for 2 weeks in Montreal. So they're both from Toronto, but still promoting and playing off the Canada angle. Get this match, and this actually to me is a bit of a draw. I'd interviewed Adam Copeland several weeks ago, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, how many matches have you and he couldn't with a straight face refer to him as Christian, so we called him Jay. How many matches have you and Jay actually had?" And he said he thought maybe like 4 or 5 at most singles matches, I mean, televised and not much more even house show wise. Like they really had not had a lot of matches in their career, even when they split off and being a tag team in WWE. So for me, that was kind of intriguing to go into this. Is here, you're building a TV show around this feud, and their promos have been pretty good, and this and that. And they got 40 plus years of history. So we get a main event entrance, big title match kind of entrance and introductions from the ring announcer. There's a holy shit chant before they've even touched. And to their credit, they have done a good job in this feud of not touching each other and staying apart here. Copeland, early on, aggressive, stops and blocks any of the Christian Cage tricks that he might do, cuts that off. We get a great false finish of Copeland goes for the spear. Christian leapfrogs it, and then he transitions into a kill switch. The ref gets bumped. We don't see the bump cleanly by what the TV camera show, but then Christian kind of goes for the next level and nut shots referee Bryce Remsburg. Then they're both of them going to go for a double spear. They both hit bump heads. They're both down, double down. Nick Wayne's mom, Shayna, comes out, and she hits Copeland with the belt. And ultimately, we get a kill switch and then a stomp on the, of course, very delicate neck by Christian. So Christian gets the victory and retains. Something else in this match I didn't mention, as I was saying, they respect the referees as they're fighting. They're fighting on the outside. Copeland rolls back in the ring, rolls back out to break the count because he can't win the title unless we keep the count out from not happening. So, Jimmy, I just feel as you're the fellow Canadian, it's only proper to go to you for all this. I know a lot of this match was really, really well done. Not totally sold on the Shayna Wayne thing and execution, but walk me through how you digested this whole thing.
No, I did. I did enjoy the match. These guys worked a hell of a match because they have that chemistry together. I found it interesting during the introductions. They introduced Adam Copeland, but they introduced Christian Cage from Orangeville, Ontario. And for people in the States who don't realize it, there is a little bit of a heat issue between Quebecois, who are French Canadians labeled. They're bilingual, mostly in Quebec, and Canada. It's kind of like this internal rivalry, so to speak. It's nothing like that would turn into anything serious, but you know what I mean. There's heat between, let's say, Ontario and Quebec, for example. And I love the fact that during the introductions, they took advantage of that, because once they said Orangeville, Ontario, the crowd started booing really bad for Christian. And even though Adam is from the same place, but they didn't.
But they didn't announce it. They just they went right to Copeland's weight and they just said
right. So they were thinking in that direction, and they told a good story during their match. The only thing is, again, we talk about the ending and what you remember at the end. Okay. We kind of missed the match, but it looks like Bryce got grazed and he was selling and hunched over. And then the kick from behind, the low kick from Christian, and he's out like a light. Maybe that would have been a good time for him to like roll out of the ring, so he's not there. And that's when you have the whole situation with Nick Wayne's mom coming down and doing the belt thing and doing that. But at the same time, you try to put a little bit of credibility on the refs. You don't have a second ref eventually come down to make the pinfall, because after a kick like that, trust me, you don't come back and count the way he counted. He went from like 0 to hero back to 0 again, just for the finish. And it could have been something as simple as Christian or Jay walking over and dragging him over, pulling him over to where Adam was, cover and saying count, or even grab his hand and count 3. Mm-hmm. Something different, something to make you want to see more. I don't know. It just, I don't get me wrong. I love these two guys to death. I like the match. It's just, again, the ending took me out of it.
Matt, what say you? Did this ending help or hurt this match?
Oh, it definitely hurt. Like, I guess the idea, right, is at the end of this match, we want to see more. We want to be compelled to see more of what Christian and Edge have in store for us. But I don't think it did that. First of all, the match was really good. The build-up was expertly done. It made it a very intriguing match as opposed to two WWE guys getting together, which is essentially what it is. The build-up was fantastic. The match was very good. But I'm not in on the Shayna character like being this pivotal person to come. And also, it just seemed like there were other ways to end the match to make it more compelling. So, glad I watched it. I think you'll do a good rating for them, but I'm not sure the program's hotter now than it was before the night started.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like with Christian the heel winning and retaining that this is not the last of the matches between these two. But Matt, kind of what you're saying.
Now, if Shayna makes out with Christian, okay. Then we got something. And I was thinking about the ramifications about it. I'm like, can they do that? Like, I don't know. Would that seem like a Russo-esque thing, or would it work? But it just seemed like it's like a whose side is she on kind of thing. It's just very strange, and she's not been created enough as a compelling character for us to care that much.
I'm not gonna lie. If she would have made out with Christian, I probably would have had a little bit more oomph behind all this.
I'm your real daddy now, Nick. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's.
Oh yeah.
But she did just bury a husband, so I'm not sure. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I know you're about to say it's wrestling.
It's wrestling.
Yeah. There's no rules.
Yeah, never say never in this business, as they say.
You're carny even when you go to the grave, right? Whatever. I got the story. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. Commentary, of course, is trying to sell this too, that like she has a grudge against Copeland because of what Adam did to her son, several weeks back in the backstage or whatever. So, we'll see where this goes.
And she's been waiting. She's been waiting for her opportunity, opportunity for revenge. And this was the perfect time to get it. She's back at the monitor, just seeing, oh, now I can do it.
She just happened to be in Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Yeah, she just happens to be there. She brought Nick some French fries from McDonald's and
some poutine.
And she's at the monitor. Tony left her backstage. She's like, "I'll be right back." She runs around the corner, and then beats up Edge and finally gets her revenge. So a plan well hatched, Miss Wayne.
No poutine. This is more like American Little League. Nick was there playing wrestler. She was team mom. She brought some orange slices.
She brought up some carrot sticks.
And some carrot sticks. Yeah, that's all it was. That's all it
was. Hopefully they all went out to Schwartz's Deli afterwards, because that's, anyways. Never mind. That's
getting your cheap plugs on there, Jimmy.
No, man. That trust me. Let me quick story for you. The night before the infamous Montreal screw job, it's a famous smoked meat place in Montreal called Schwartz's Delicatessen, and it was late night the night before the infamous night at the Bell Center. It's a lineup, and we're lined up outside, and we're like maybe less than 10 feet from the door now, going, yes, we're going to get our sandwiches here, and we hear behind us, whoa, look at this motley crew, and we look back, and it's Pat, and it's Vince, and it's like, oh. Yeah, we got your spot up here.
So Vince and Pat are fresh off of concocting the screw job that's going to happen 24 hours later, and getting Brett and everybody on board, getting Hebner on board, and it's time for smoked meat, huh?
Exactly. You got to celebrate in some form or fashion, right?
Vince probably asked if they had raw veal. Like, do you have raw veal? Just something strange for him to eat.
Gee, I guess it's appropriate. We just came off the month of November and Survivor Series, and of course we're talking about Montreal here this week with AEW. Did you hear? I mean, look, statute of limitations have lifted. You're fine,
right?
I don't think you ever knew what was going to. I don't think anybody knew except for the parties involved. But like, given the situation that Brett's leaving, I'm sure you'd heard Brett's leaving. He's gone to WCW, and of course it was no state secret that he and Sean didn't get along. Well, like. What were you hearing the night? But do you remember like what was the juice going into the pay-per-view match the next night? Like what did you think was going to happen? That Brett was just going to do business and it was just going to be that he would drop the title and just move on to Atlanta?
That's what we thought the night before. And then what we were told outside of Earl, like the other referees, was, okay, this is what's going to happen in the match. It's going to end in a schmoz. You guys go out and break everything up, and that's it. That's how we're going home at the end of the pay-per-view, and that's what we thought. And as I probably have told you this, Justin, that I was standing right beside Bruce Pritchard in Gorilla, because Bruce was manning Gorilla that night, watching the monitor when Earl took the bump, and Sean got Brett in the sharpshooter. And as you know, we wear IFBs in the ring, so the referees can hear. Bruce was the man talking to us that night. I'm standing right beside Bruce, and I hear somebody say, okay, now, Earl, get up. Get up now, Earl. And I'm looking at Bruce, and he's not the one pushing the button, talking into the microphone. So it had to come from the truck. And then that's when he got up, rang the bell, and he took off, and he ran through and all like that. And
so from the truck, so Kevin Dunn.
It had to be Kevin Dunn. I can't think of anybody else who would be in this.
So Vince had to clue Kevin Dunn in too at some point.
Yeah, definitely somebody from the truck knew.
Yeah.
And Bruce has said he didn't know at the time.
No, he didn't, because you should. Yeah. Earl, what are you doing? What's he doing? Yeah. He even, I think at one point, he looked up at me and goes, "What is he doing?" I said, "I don't know." Which
that makes sense, because obviously Vince is trying to protect as many people as possible and not have them be implicated.
But poor Earl, Earl lives close by, and I've met him many times, and I like David very much, his brother. But man, Earl still wears that, man. He still carries it with him with more guilt and shame than anybody really thinks he should have. So they put Earl in a terrible position there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jimmy, were you still standing there in Gorilla when all the parties came through? When Sean came through, when Brett came through, were you still there?
No, not with Brett, because Brett stayed out there for a while
and smashed shit up.
Yeah, right? I wasn't going out there then. He was hotter than you know what? So I went to the back where the main monitor was, where the boys all sit and watch the monitor. They have a nice little setup there. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the monitor, and they've got the camera on Sean as he's walking back, and he looks all pissed off and blah blah blah. But just before he leaves the arena and goes through the curtain, he raises the belt up and he raises his hands and then cuts through the curtain. And then as he exits to the gorilla position and comes into the area where the monitor is, he sees that the boys are all still there, wondering, like, what the heck did we just watch? That's crazy. That's ridiculous. I don't want it this way. And he throws the belt down, and he acted like, he wasn't a
safe face kind of. Yeah.
He put on a show. He put on a show for y'all. How nice of him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we found out later, of course, he put on a show, but that's what I saw. And then after that, it was like, unfortunately, I had to get changed to get out there and get onto ring crew. But as we all found out later, a lot of activity went on afterwards. That's for sure.
Yeah. God, have you ever thought, Jimmy, what you would have done had you been the one that was cast as the referee for that match? I know Earl typically took the title matches in the main events in that in 1997. I know that,
but it could have been you.
Right. I mean, it could if I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, if they said, Earl's not wanting to do this, or Earl's sick or whatever, like, if you had to be, it's not gonna be Kyoto, it's not gonna be Doan, it's gonna be Korderas. Like, you ever thought about what the F would you have done if they asked you to do this?
Of course I've thought about it. I'm sure pretty much every referee there that night thought about it. What would they do if they were put in that situation? And I would probably be honest with you guys and say I would have probably done what Earl did.
Yeah.
That's
your job, man. That's your paycheck. Like, that's.
And I gotta I give props to our locker room leader, the Undertaker, who kind of didn't. I don't want to say he sided with Earl, but he understood Earl's position. He knew that Earl was caught in a rock on a hard place, and there was no way he was going to make it, either side happy. So, he said, hey, cut Earl some slack. He did what he had to do to keep his job, basically, which is what a lot of us do here, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. MNEC, what did Taker say? Taker didn't really do much that night, really. It was more the next night. It was kind of like, or was that night he told Vince, you need to go address the boys? It was one of those nights. Taker said, you need to go address the boys, right?
Yeah, and he did before the Raw. He addressed everybody. Yeah.
Wild times. All right. Well, that was a good little bonus to the DVD tonight of Montreal history here. So that was Dynamite that we did a few minutes ago. So certainly Dynamite on an interesting path here as we finish out 2023, going to this World's End pay-per-view again. What's MJF's situation, all that stuff. Hopefully we'll get clarity. Who's the devil? Hopefully we'll get clarity sooner rather than later. Appreciate everybody who's been live in the chat room tonight. If you're not watching us live, if you're listening to us on demand, as it's the most popular thing to do with audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, we appreciate you there too. Leave a comment, leave a nice rating, whatever you can share, tell a friend. That's always appreciated. Gentlemen, hard final opinions and give your plugs for your brands. Do all the cheap pops and cheap thrills that you want. Matt, go ahead. Kick it off.
Well, just follow me at Matt Koon Music. I'll have new music coming out this month. And also the show. It was a very bipolar show. There were so many different things going on that didn't seem like they were part of the same show. It was okay. It wasn't great. The matches were good, but it wasn't like this amazing Dynamite.
Yeah. Matt, what kind of music? I mean, again, I know we talked about it a little bit Monday. Like, give people some, promote your stuff. I mean, do you play all instruments? Like, how do you do this?
I play all instruments, and I record right where I'm sitting right now. The kind of music I'd say, there's going to be funky stuff and rockin' stuff and jazzy stuff and New Orleans sounding stuff. So all kinds of different styles. Credibility's a little on the line. I'm known as the music guy, and I also have a music school where I teach 150 kids every week. So I got to make sure that it's it's good, or else I'm just a joke. So I think it's good. I'm pretty confident in it, that people are going to like it. But it's different. Just encourage people to listen to it. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And just a quick little thing that makes me happy because back when I was in school, I was in the school band. I played saxophone, which was
nice.
cool. Yeah.
Got some saxophone students.
Nice.
Well, I played bass, so if we can get some drums going, we can do something here.
Mm-hmm.
We can make something here. No,
I love playing bass. Bass is an amazing instrument.
Yeah, Matt, that's always fascinated me. Like I think Billy Corgan did it for like at least one of the Smashing Pumpkins. Like, you know, doing all the instruments, doing it all, and making it, and then like, all right, here guys, you're gonna come learn all this stuff. Like that's always fascinating to me to be able to have that talent to do that. So.
Man, I tell you, it's more of a skill than a talent. You know, it's like you work hard on anything, you can get good enough at it. Music is not, and I've learned this from teaching, music is not this thing for a select few people. It's for people who just want to do it. That's it. You know, so when I was younger, I played guitar. I wanted to have some bass playing on there, so I learned how to play bass. Started teaching drums and other instruments and learning other instruments just to make music and to teach. And we have some amazing students. So we've had 4 all-state jazz students this year, which is probably more than any high school. So it's going really well, and I love playing music, and it's part of me for sure.
Dude, that's
Nice.
Matt. I mean, if you want, I know we're speaking to the world here on the podcast, but for anybody who is within reasonable driving distance of Richmond, how can they find this?
It's called Mako Music, MAKO Music School, and you can find us online and Facebook and Instagram. And we have our big concert coming up at the Broadberry, which is a great venue, January 21st. So yeah, that's my full-time gig is like teaching Led Zeppelin and Michael Jackson. My part-time gig is talking about wrestling. So once in a while I have to take a step back and go, you know, I'm doing pretty good. I'm not doing too bad. This is a good way to be.
That's not a bad way to make a living. That's pretty cool. Man, that's awesome. Check it out. Again, if you're within reasonable distance of Richmond, check that out. That's really, really cool. Jimmy, final thoughts on tonight's Dynamite and plug it away.
Again, a mixed bag. There's stuff I enjoyed and stuff that made me scratch my head and go, and gave me some fodder for my riff and rants, which I do on all my social media platforms from Monday to Friday, which is a 1-minute long video, which, like I say, I critique something not to tear down, but to what I hope tighten screws that I believe need tightening. And of course, you can catch me here usually with you, Justin, on Monday nights and Wednesday nights after Raw and Dynamite, respectively. And you can catch me and my good brother in stripes, Ryan Hebner, on the Roughing It Up podcast. Held together. Thank you, RJ, for keeping the glue together. And this week we got Elijah Burke.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Check that out. The Roughing podcast. Love me some Brian Hebner, fellow Washington football fan.
And Richmond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Richmond
Hanover
time.
County. Yep.
Yes.
Richmond time. Yeah, tonight's Dynamite, I'm going. It was a kind of a neutral. You know what I mean? This tournament, we're kind of in this neutral pace of the tournament. The MJF's Devil stuff, I thought it was going to end last month, so we're kind of like, I feel like everything's in neutral. I feel like everything's in neutral until we get to the world's end. I feel like everything's targeted to that, and boy, hopefully we get a lot of answers for that. Follow me at Justin LaBar across the socials, Twitter, Instagram, whatever your fancy be. I'm here on Mondays. I'm here on Wednesdays on Wrestling Inc. Friday morning, Spar with LaBar, myself and Dave LaGreca and Thunder Rosa on Sirius XM Radio, Busted Open Channel 156. And then now, Busted Open truly is 24/7, 7 days a week. The 7th day being Sunday. So I'm co-hosting every single Sunday, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time with my partner, Jonathan Hood, very good radio guy, very good wrestling mind. And so Sunday mornings, which is great because, you know, you got so much happening on Saturday nights now with these PLEs and pay-per-views and, you know, and it's Sunday. So we can kind of like wrap up even the week that was. We can kind of like catch everything. So Sunday morning, Busted Open. Please join us. It's been a blast in our first 2 episodes, and we got a lot more to come. Thanks to everybody who was chatting live with us and supporting this podcast here on Wrestling Inc. Again, if you're not live, if you're watching, listen after the fact, that's good too. Comment, subscribe, do all the things. We appreciate it. That's going to do it tonight. For Matt, for Jimmy, I'm Justin. Be good, be safe, smoke them if you got them.